see, today I have a bowl of hot water with me, along with 4 other items. Today, we're going to see if these items float or sink. I'm going to hold up an item and ask you to vote whether you think it's going to float or sink. Are you ready? Let's go. Here is the first item. It's a block of building wood. How many of you think it's going to float? How many of you think it's going to sink? Let's put it to the test. It floats. Most of you were right. Now, here's the second object, a metal spoon. How many of you think it's going to float? How many of you think it's going to sink? Let's put it to the test. It sinks. Most of you are right. Here is the third object. It's a thin strip of heavy-duty foil. How many of you think it's going to float? How many of you think it's going to sink? Let's put it to the test. Most of you are right. It floats. Now, here's our fourth and final object. It's a wad of the same heavy-duty foil that we saw earlier in a ball. How many of you think it's going to float? How many of you think it's going to sink? As you can see, it floats. Now, are you a floater or a sinker? Don't worry, I'm not going to put you in a tub of water to find out, but I do think the Bible may have an answer. Do you remember the Bible story when Jesus fed 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? After he had finished feeding the 5,000, Jesus told his disciples to get into their boat and go to the other side of the lake while he went up into the mountains to be alone and to pray. While the disciples were going to the other side of the lake in their boat, the wind came up and began to get rough. The disciples became afraid that their boat would sink and that they would be drowned. Then they looked, and they saw Jesus coming towards them, and he was walking on the water. When Peter saw Jesus, he became excited and said to him, "Lord, if that's really you, let me walk to you on the water." Jesus answered Peter and said, "Come." While Peter climbed over the side of the boat and started walking on the water to Jesus, then he began to look around. He felt the strong winds and saw the waves and became afraid and started to sink. He cried out to Jesus, "Help! Save me!" Jesus reached out his hand and saved Peter, and he said to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why do you doubt?" As long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he was walking on the water. But when he took his eyes off of Jesus, he began to sink. As we go through life, there will be storms. We will encounter some pretty rough waters. So as long as we keep our eyes upon Jesus and put our trust in him, we will be okay. But when we take our eyes off of Jesus and put our confidence in our own ability, we will surely sink. Dear Jesus, when the storms of life come against us, help us to keep our eyes on you and to put your trust in you.